Welcome to the Workhorse Podcast. We're your hosts, Kendall and Jessica, and we're here to give you real talk and real strategies for women building farms, ranches, and rural businesses. Welcome to the Workhorse Podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Kendall, and Jess is here with me today, and we are going to be doing a little bit of a deep dive into everything Moose Valley Ranch.
I almost heard that, and it sounded like I wasn't always with you every day.
Well, I mean, you are always, but specifically, we're like doing it a little bit differently this time in that I'm interviewing you instead of us just like spitballing our podcast episodes away. So it feels a little bit like I'm the interviewer and you're the guest.
No, I get that. It was a funny intro. I love it. I'm here for it.
I'm really excited. And caveat, I'm also extremely tired today, so we're going to make this work. If I trip up a little bit, hang tight with me. I am sitting in my pajamas, so this will not be a video on Instagram podcast this week. So I'm really excited. We had previously done an episode where Jess interviewed me about all things Central Park Farms, and I was really excited to dive into this because Jess has had a really dynamic change throughout her business. She's really covered a lot of different ground through her business. And I actually was with Jess. We've been friends since basically almost the beginning of Moose Valley Ranch. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear more about what that business looks like from the beginning all the way until where she is today. So Jess, let's start with your origin story. What were you doing? Yeah, I know, but it is. It is. What were you doing before you got into it? What was the start? Like, why did you get into doing what you're doing?
I think it came out of survival. So we were in Montana, my husband and I, we were troopers in Montana. And at that point, I was never coming home. I had left the ranch for college and like only come back to play and, you know, like the occasional weekend holiday at home. But really, sounds really bad, but I don't think I ever really saw a future or space for me at the ranch. And to be honest, I'm sure I was a little bit of a twat waffle and like wasn't really into the farming. It's true. I was super into FFA and you know, showing and doing all the sort of, you know, ag stuff at the fair and different things. But I don't think I ever went to my dad and said, oh, I really want to learn how to drive a tractor. But that also wasn't offered to me either. I'm the only girl. And so I think there was a little bit of that like old school, you know, it just wasn't expected of me. I learned to make biscuits and I did public speaking and FFA and off I went at college. And it was just like, never was there a plan to come back to the ranch. So long story long, I ended up dropping out of law school and heading off on a great adventure to Montana where I met my husband. And that's really where we planned to stay and retire. Like we were going to do our full 25 and stay in Montana. And it wasn't even an option to come home, which is odd.
I feel like you need to tell people a bit about your town, but before you tell people about your town, I'm going to tell people about your town because the very first time that I crossed, so for those of you who don't know, Jess and I are about 2.5 hours away from each other and from where my ranching community is. And I'm about 10 minutes from the border. So when I was talking to US Customs on my way down for the very first time to go see her, and he asked where I was going, keep in mind, this is an American border guard. So like he lives not very far. He even told me where he lived and it wasn't even that far from Jess. And when he said, where are you going? And I said, Springdale. He was like, I'm sorry, where? And I was like, Springdale. And I tried to explain to him where Springdale was. And he's like, never heard of it.
For perspective. Yeah. For perspective, the border crossing that Kendall crosses at is in the same county as my town.
And he lived in that county because he told me, because he started talking, his wife had like a hobby farm and she was like, and he was telling me, and then you pass that on the way to Springdale, the community. And it was so funny. And then the very next time I crossed the border, they asked where I was going. And I said Springdale. And he's like, what are you doing in Springdale? Best of luck. So, I mean, apparently that guy knew where Springdale was a little bit.
So that's my hometown. Springdale. I was born and raised on the ranch, which is it's like 5 miles outside of town. So Springdale address, Springdale. Like, I don't even know what to say about it. I mean, it's
population.
I want to say 270 at the last census. If you're going by city limits, if you're going by like zip code, it might be more. But by like in-town city limits, it's got to be under 300.
So I guess I could see why. Like, I guess I could see why if you didn't feel like there was space for you on the ranch.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there was no future at the town.
Yes. Right. Like how would you have planned a future? And I know that's a big part of the legacy that you want to grow. And I know you've talked about that a lot, is making it so that young women feel like there's something to stay home for and be able to stay in their small rural communities and be able to have big dreams. But I could see how at the time that would have been a tough thing to envision.
Well, and when I was going through high school, I mean, social media was just taking off. Like, I used to have a top 8 on MySpace, and we would code music in.
Say MySpace.
The bane of my existence in high school. So it really was just taking off, and I don't think in any way, shape, or form were we seeing kind of the storytelling that you see now, where you're like, oh wow, I can picture that in my small town. Like, that just was not the thing. And so I left, and it just didn't even occur to me to like think of something to do there, or that I could do something. I was just on my grand adventure. I was driving fast and shooting guns and taking down the bad guys, and we were going to be lifelong troopers. And then we had kids, and I had a nightmare of a sergeant. So he actually married us. Like, this is what's so wild. So I don't think I've ever shared this story before.
No one can see us because we're never showing this video of me doing the podcast in my pajamas. But the reason she started laughing is my eyebrows just spiked up. Like, it went against the Botox, and I had high eyebrows.
I was like, man, you need Botox like I do right now.
Yeah.
So my husband, when we got together, was mid-divorce. Sorry, let me back that up. When I met him was mid-divorce. So I met him as a trainee. He was a trainer that came to the academy. I was going through the academy as a cadet and I met him there, and he was honestly kind of really sad. Like, he was sad, like,
CJ.
He was very like, if you know him now, you would be like, what? Like, just very like withdrawn and sad. And it turns out he was going through a divorce. He just found out his wife cheated on him. And
You're putting all the tea on the podcast.
Oh, well, whatever. They're listening to it. They should get it. Anyway, she cheated on him. She cheated on him with the Chamber of Commerce president, also her boss, also a married, important person in the small town that they were in.
No.
And she had stayed in the house, and he apparently was sleeping on the sergeant's couch. So fast forward a little bit, I graduate from the academy. We find out our duty stations. I get stationed in the same spot as him, meet the sergeant, because that's what you do, is like you get sent out to go meet them, and you're going through FTO process. And they're kind of supposed to help you like get settled. And it's hard in a small rural Montana town to like know who to talk to about rentals and where do you go. Anyways, he's like, hey, CJ's basement is available. There's no apartments in this town, Cut Bank if you know it. It's right outside of a pretty gnarly reservation that even I was not allowed to go to alone per the sergeant's orders. And he's like, CJ's basement's available though. This will be great. I know you'll be safe. It's safe for a squad car to be parked there. Like, they were very acutely aware that I was a young white female in an area where that was going to be an oddity. So I move in, and we're both really sad. I was super homesick. I can remember laying in the bedroom underneath of him. So it was like a 2-story house where the basement was exactly the same layout as the upstairs. So I had the same living room, same 3 bedrooms, same bathrooms. And anyways, I can remember hearing him crying upstairs and me crying downstairs because it was the holidays, and that was his first holidays divorced. And he was like, he was a super committed married guy. Like, now he will tell you he was miserable, but like he at the time was not. He was like, he was in it, and that was it. So anyways, very sad pandas together. We end up getting together after his divorce was final. That was really important to him, which was kind of weird to me because I'd never been divorced and I didn't know what the big deal was. But we start to have this little love story happening, and our sergeant, so we're a detachment of 6. So that's like a very small detachment in law enforcement. And he asked me to marry him, and he had kind of become buddies with the sergeant went hunting with him, lived on his couch during that time when he was getting divorced, and everything seemed really good. And so we could only get like 3 days off for our wedding. There was no ability because I was low man on the totem pole and he was the next guy above me. So there was no like getting extra time off or taking a week off for the wedding. It was like, yeah, so you're back on duty on Tuesday and he's back on duty on Monday. So we turned and burned really quick and we ended up asking our sergeant to marry us, and he did. So he actually is the one that he got ordained and he married us. And then I think it kind of, I don't know. Honestly, I think he got really mad because I had a baby pretty quick. So I was pregnant when we got married, had a baby pretty quick. And then all of a sudden there was this issue because they didn't have a maternity policy. So in Montana, there hadn't been a female trooper of childbearing age for a really long time. And my class like doubled the amount of women in the patrol. And they didn't have like maternity policies, and they didn't have like breastfeeding policies, and they didn't have like, they were totally unprepared for a bunch of young female troopers to go out into male dominated trooper land where we all got hooked up and married and had babies within like, I think there was like 4 of us pregnant within like 2 years. I mean, we were the statistic.
They were ill prepared.
They were so unprepared. So anyways, they told me, like I had less than 8 weeks off with my first son before I had to put a gun belt back on.
That is,
I know.
As
Wild.
a Canadian, my mind is blown.
Yeah.
We have a very long maternity policy here.
Nope. I had less than 8 weeks and I was back to full duty, and they told me I could pump in the car if that's what I was going to do. That was their like quote unquote breastfeeding accommodations, was that I could pump in the car because they couldn't give me a break room, disregarding that it was federally mandated. Whatever.
Yeah.
And let's add in the fact that I had to go in with an FTO again, because when you're out for that long,
What's
you have
an
to
FTO?
have, that's a field training officer.
Okay.
When you're out for that long, military and maternity are pretty similar. So like if you go on deployment for 6 months or 9 months, when you come back, you have to like kind of do a check ride in for a while, like make sure you remember what you're doing and you're being safe. And the same thing with maternity. I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah.
What I do adamantly have an issue with is that they expected me to take my uniform shirt, my gun belt, and my bulletproof vest, and my undershirt and my bra off in the driver's seat as a male that was not my husband was in the passenger seat to pump if I wanted to pump. I kid you not. So they told me, if you want to do that, if you think you're gonna do that you're gonna have to make it work. And I'm like, you want me on the side of I-15 outside of Shelby, Montana with my freaking top off in a marked patrol car with a man that's not my husband? He would be so close to me that he could probably hear the like.
Oh my God.
Game over. Game over. It like, after that, everything was super downhill.
I can see where that spiral went.
Real quick. Anyways, what he didn't calculate was that, so CJ's from over here too, from Washington State. And so coming home meant both of us were closer to our families, meant we had more help, meant we were underneath this sergeant from hell, who at that point just thought I was like out to make his life miserable. And I'm like, no, I just wanted to have a family and do my job. Like I thought I should be able to per the federal government's regulations, but like, hey, who am I? So CJ ended up getting hired over here, and then we came back. And when we left, that was a third of his detachment at once. Like he lost a third of his coverage at once. And if you could have seen the amount of middle fingers flying as I left that town, just like, and what's crazy to me is how many other female troopers now, like we still, a bunch of us keep in touch. We're pretty close. If there is anybody left, it's somebody I didn't keep in touch with, but there was a ton of us that have since left. So there's some fun backstory.
Do things a little differently. So you roll back into town. You do not go straight to the ranch though, right?
Actually, we did. We lived here for like 3 months, the worst 3 months of my life. I had a newborn child and a brother who was in just a psychotic relationship, for lack of a better word, and parents that weren't living there. So we thought we were going to get to just stay at the ranch house. We thought my brother was living elsewhere and that we would be at the ranch house and my parents would be coming back on the weekends like they had been, because my mom's work was quite a ways away. And so they were spending weeks at her work, weekends at the ranch. And we thought, oh, this will be great. We'll come back. We'll have like the weeks to ourselves. And then my parents will be here on the weekends. We'll have time to get settled. Oh, no. Nope.
Are we going family dynamic?
I don't care. It's
on
our podcast. Listen, it's our podcast. And I have warned my family. This is how bad it is. I have warned them. This is my content. This is my podcast. And this is my story. Like, I'm not gonna throw people under the bus to be mean and spiteful, but I'm also not going to share honestly, like, the truth. I'm not like, It was not easy. So anyways, my brother and his girlfriend at the time, it was so bad. He would like go to the bar because she was too young to go to the bar. And then she would be crying on the stairs at 2 a.m. as my child's trying to sleep. My husband's on night shift. So he's trying to like, hours are crazy. And I've got this poor 19-year-old girl crying on the stairs because her boyfriend was like, F you, I'm going to the bar. I don't like you. Figure out your own way home. It was awful. So we ended up jumping out as quick as we could and buying another house, which came pretty quick. I think we came back in like September, October, and we had our own house by January, which was off the ranch. Immediately better.
And then you were pumpkining.
No, I went back to work. No, that was
pumpkins way after.
Way after. We had another child. So in law enforcement, you only have 2 years in our state to leave law enforcement. You have 2 years. And if you don't get reemployed in that time, you have to go all the way back through basic. They call it basic versus lateraling. And so I had just enough time to pop out one more kid really quick. And then I went back full-time in law enforcement at 3 months with my second child. So I had an 18-month-old and a 3-month-old, and I went back to night shift as a deputy.
And that cannot even imagine, Jess. Cannot even imagine.
Yeah, the amount of things I don't remember, and I'm fairly certain it was from like the sleeplessness and the juggling and everything. Because at that time, CJ was... I'm 90% certain he was still on nights. He was, because we had nights. We paid for a full-time nanny. We had to pay for daycare during the day and a full-time nanny at night to stay with the boys because we both were gone for night shift. And so we couldn't put them in. There was no daycare at night.
Of course not.
So, 5 p.m., both of us were gone for night shift. I would roll in at 3 just in time to do the 3 a.m. feeding with my son and then sleep until she left for school in the morning and the kids were up at like 7. That was when they slept in until 7.
They do not sleep in until 7 anymore. When I sleep at Jess's house, you guys, I hear little boy knocks on the door so early, and they're like, Kendall, psst, psst. I mean, they do bring me a coffee a lot of the time, but it's always a black, just regular coffee. And I am a frothy milk kind of gal.
They're getting better at that, I will say.
It's the thought that counts, but also I'm like, I'm not quite ready to get up, guys. So check back in 15, and 5 minutes on the dot, they're talking.
Yeah. Yeah, they get up really early now. No, so I went back to work pretty early, and I was working full time, and it wasn't for another couple of years when I finally decided that I was going to start something. We were just spending a ton of time over there, and then I had a good friend ask if she could get married there. And I think I had seen enough things at that point, like social media stuff, to think, man, I really wish there was some way to like make a business here or make something at the ranch for myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
We also always talked about succession planning. Like that was, we had to have like wills when we left law enforcement academy. You had to have like a full will. Like if you're killed, this is what's going to happen. This is who gets your stuff. They have like who gets notified first. If you're in an incident, like that sort of conversation happens a lot. And I think when we had kids, we kind of doubled down on talking that through, like who was going to take our kids. If by some chance we were both involved in the same incident, like, not like 9/11 style, but like if there was, I don't know, like a really bad incident, we were both involved and we were both instantly gone. Like who got the kids? What did we want done with the house? What did we want? So we always had those conversations, and that wasn't uncommon for us. And so I think it kind of started thinking about like, well, what's happening with my parents' succession plan wise? And we talked about that. Like, what's his family's in Leavenworth, and they were like, his parents were building a new house, and like a really nice house. And um, his sister was in Chicago. Anyway, there was just like all these moving pieces, and we were like, man, what are we planning for the future? Like, what should we be working towards? What needs to be invested in? What needs to be, should we be putting more in retirement? We've kind of always talked through that sort of end game-ness. And we realized, like, if we are going to inherit half the ranch on law enforcement salaries, there's no way we're paying property taxes on that much acreage without it having like an income. And I don't know about you, I didn't want to get to retirement and then have to figure out how to start a business. Like a lot of people that wait, do you know what I mean? Like they work their whole career, something falls in their laps. And I was hearing that a lot of just like, oh, my parents passed away and I got this piece of land and now quick, I've got to figure it out. Or they weren't anticipating it. And so we really started just saying, like, if there's going to be any way for us to keep this, it has to pay for itself.
And for those who are interested in the conversation around succession planning, I'm going to link to an episode that we did previously where Jess really gets into that succession plan from her perspective and from my perspective. But as you can tell from this episode, Jess has a really unique perspective of being previously law enforcement but it is true.
Yeah,
like
it's true.
The way that I think about it, and even the way I talk about it, is going to be wildly different than the way you talk about it, because it's just, it's a reality that you've seen play out so many more times on how quickly something like that can happen. Yeah. Whereas I kind of like tiptoe around the potential that, we all do pass. You tend to be just like much more forward with that information because you've seen it so much in a different way than me. So it is a really good episode, and we got really good feedback on that episode in the past. So we will link to it in the show notes if you're interested in diving into that topic a little bit. But just because we are on the topic of family, how did that go when you went to your family for the first time and said that you wanted to start doing something on the ranch?
I don't know that there was much of a reaction, as I think it was basically like a pat on the head. Sure, sweetie. You want to grow some pumpkins and have a wedding out here? That's so sweet. Sure. I just don't think it was a serious thing.
Yeah. How do you think the dynamic is for you working with family at the ranch?
Awful. It's probably the single biggest stressor, anxiety inducer, the biggest unknown. It's horrible. Like if I could trade one thing, it would be that. And it sucks because it's not that I don't love my parents. My relationship with my brother is incredibly fractured and unhealthy and broken. And I don't even know why. Like, I think that's probably even the hardest part is I don't know why it's not good. I just know that it isn't. And it's something I so desperately want to fix and be different. I mean, in my head, I always wanted the big brother that wanted to protect me, that wanted to, be there. And probably that's a little bit too much like a, novel concept. Everybody's got their own stuff. But ours is pretty bad. And that's not healthy when there's that dynamic happening on the same property as my parents and I's dynamic, as my parents and his dynamic. Like it's this triangulation. It's actually like a quadrilation because sometimes even my parents aren't aligned on things. And so then you'll get like my mom's perspective of how it goes with my brother, then my mom's perspective of how it goes with me, and then my perspective of how it goes with my dad, and then my dad not agreeing with my mom. And it becomes like this massive. We were just joking tonight. My dad called not a family meeting, a Moose Valley Ranch meeting. And I told my husband, I said, yeah, Dad called a ranch meeting. And he's like, about what? I said, I don't know. And he's like, geez, seriously? He's like, what is now? And I go, I don't know. And I go, this is why I have anxiety. And I like danced past him in the kitchen. And I was like, this is why. And he was just like, great. I love dealing with you.
For those who don't know, Moose Valley Ranch is Jess's company that operates on the family property. Moose Valley Ranch is not owned by the family. So they have the overlap of various businesses operating on the same piece of land and how those businesses interact with each other.
My brother has his own company too.
Yeah. Do you think that running the company has made your guys' relationship better or worse?
Worse.
Okay.
worse because I think it was easy to ignore me before. It's really hard to ignore me when I'm right in his face.
Yeah.
When I'm like all up in and when I'm causing disruptions and when I'm needing things and when I'm wanting things and it's right there, it's obviously a source of friction. And I think for me, it's more so. No, you know what? I'm just going to be like totally honest. At times it feels very intentionally sabotaging and like aggressive hatred. I mean, you've seen more. Do you think that's accurate?
Yeah. I feel like it's a difficult dynamic for sure as somebody who has witnessed it and as somebody who's witnessed it as a third party at like the height of Market in the Mountains, at the height of where the best case scenario would be all hands are on deck in a positive, or even if it's not all hands are on deck, even if it's just
cause no harm
out of the way. Yeah.
do no harm.
Like do no harm. And certainly there are times where he steps up and helps. It's just how you get to that.
I think that's what's almost harder
behind it of being questionable, perhaps. It does feel a little bit like, sometimes great and then sometimes less than.
Yeah, there are times where it's just like so good. And I almost think that makes it worse because then it's like I can see that the potential for it to be good is there. And I can see that like the capacity is there on both sides for it to be good. Like when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's so bad. And it's double bad now because we live here too. Like we don't live on the ranch. We live right next to the ranch. It was the ranch. My parents gave it to us, this chunk. We're just not like smack dab in the middle. Like I thank God every day that I'm not right next to the old farmhouse and that I have my own driveway and I have my own
other side of the street.
I do, because sometimes it's like, it's really painful. And I think I get really frustrated that my parents don't care to change it. I'm trying to be as not sugarcoating it, but as like fair as I can in the situation. I'm a pretty strong-willed individual.
Yes.
It took me a long time to become more self-aware of what it was in my own behavior. And so I don't want to discount that, right? Like I played a part in this. My reactions play a part in this. My business plays a part in this. But I will like die on the hill that I deserve just as much opportunity at this ranch as he does.
And I get that, and you get that so often when this conversation comes up at retreats and everything else. And there will be women in the room with us who say, I have never gotten the same opportunity as my brothers. I have never had the same opportunity from my father, from my father-in-law, from the men on the ranch or the farm where I reside. Always view, and this is like when I say always, that's what is coming out of these women's mouths. I'm not saying this is across the board, correct for everybody's experience, but oftentimes it'll be, they treat my business like a hobby or an inconvenience. It gets in the way of, their cow-calf operation. It's like the little beef business or the little this business that's existing or the little, wedding business on the ranch, instead of treating it as the opportunity that is available to all the different members of the family, and that they all should be able to chase those opportunities so that the businesses can be profitable and the property can be held, and so that women don't leave their town because they don't see an opportunity on the family property.
I think what's wild to me is that it even goes into the belief of whether I can or cannot make something happen. Is there, like, if my brother were to roll in tomorrow and say, I want to plant this field in barley instead of triticale, or I'm going to plow this under and I want to put alfalfa there, it doesn't feel like he gets pushback on that. He got educated in it. He's been doing it for a long time now. I'm sure they have like different discussions about what they want and don't want that I'm not privy to, but there's none of this like, well, that's never going to grow, or you're never going to make money off that, which is wild to me because the ranch was never incredibly profitable. I mean, my parents made a living off of it, but it wasn't like there was tons of extra money rolling around. And we were like any other farmer, right? Like
Yeah.
you live for the harvest and hope it's good. And my dad had a full-time job and my mom went back to work when we were in high school. And so obviously it wasn't providing at the level that they wanted it to provide at. And then in walks me with my little business.
Yeah.
And that thing that they were sure was really not going to work. And I grossed more than the hay operation last year. At least in my rough calculations. Now I don't get to know inside numbers because God forbid I get told anything, but
You can count bales.
I can count bales. I can do rough estimates. And the gross numbers, it was like there was the tipping point of, can I get a little respect and consideration in the fact that my little business made more money than the hay that you put up? But I still feel like I have to fight for that every step of the way. I still feel like I have built my business in the little fringe pockets and corners of the ranch that aren't usable. So like, I'm not even worthy of having usable land. You know, I get to have market after the hay has been cut. I get to put the geodome in the spot where it was previously not even traversable because of the amount of hawthorns and the topography. So I get to do my thing so long as it doesn't impact and it doesn't. Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to broad stroke ask a question that's not necessarily directly to your family, because I like your family very much.
I love my family.
So Karen, if you're listening, this is broad stroke. Do you think that part of is that you are female and he is male and it's that dynamic? Or do you think it's that when this kind of thing happens, that it's because oftentimes it's like the less common business decisions, like it's the pushing the envelope, like us women come to the table with like the agritourism and the, glamping stays and the big events and the markets and the stuff that's not cow-calf operation and hay or whatever it is. Do you think it's both of those things that come into play?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard both kind of thrown back at me. So I would venture a guess that it's both. And I can see, no, that's a lie. I can sort of see the non-traditional side of it. Like that's really outside of a comfort zone for a 70 or almost 70-year-old man who didn't see it be successful anywhere else. I can almost understand that. The whole son-daughter thing, I do not understand in any way, shape, or form, because I have two sons and I am bound and determined that no matter what I do, they both have the same opportunities as each other, the same consideration, the same, which I know fair isn't always equal isn't always fair, but I really struggle with this because I was reading, and it was Lily Hill Cattle. Super cool story. If you've ever heard it, I follow her. I just think the world of what they're doing. My heart goes out to her when she shares on certain things because it really resonates a lot with me. But she posted something the other day and it said, why should those that aren't a part of it get a piece of those that are still here?
I saw that.
Yeah. And great topic of understanding that is how family farms get lost is like the second and third cousins that got a piece of it because their mom had half of it, that they've never been involved, never been there, and they have no investment in it. Great. But like, what about those of us that never got a chance to be there?
Yeah.
I couldn't raise my family. I couldn't have had a family and lived off of what I could have made from what? I mean, there wasn't anything for me to make money on. It wasn't even an option. And it wasn't talked about. I don't remember if it was, I don't remember ever having like an adult conversation with my parents about, do you want to come back? Are you interested in the family farm? Like that was never even talked about. I don't even know if it's still been talked about.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that it will continue to get better for future generations. Like, I feel like when the boys are grown and if their wives one day decide they want to run a business, like the boys maybe are running something on the ranch and, their wives want to be involved, I feel like we are getting better and better. And my belief is that your generation, me, like our generation will be so much more open to that kind of thing, be so much more willing to support all the different forms of diversity that can happen on the farms than they used to.
It's not even just the diversity to me. I think it's the communication more than anything. That generation, the generation above mine, does not like to talk about death. They do not like to share. They don't speak on politics, like they grew up in the age where you don't talk about politics or religion or finances. And I think that just, even if it was unfair, if that had been communicated from the beginning, that like, you're the girl, you're not going to have an opportunity here, or, whatever that would have looked like. And that's not me saying that I think my parents don't want me to have opportunity there, but there was never even the conversation of like, okay, if you leave and go get a job and your brother spends 10 years here, he's going to get X, Y, and Z because he's not gone and pursued those other opportunities.
Yes.
And there just wasn't any of that. And I just think if they felt a certain way, which I don't know if they do or not, if they felt a certain way, that should have been communicated while I was making really important life decisions, instead of wall of silence and then just this sort of roller coaster of crap, because it's great. You guys see it all the time. You see my dad helping me put in driveway entrances. You see him looking at billboards with me. You see all of that, but you don't necessarily see me crying at the kitchen table because he's telling me he doesn't think I have the bandwidth to do whatever it is I want to do.
Yeah. And I am glad that you said that last part, is that they do show up. So
that's what's so hard.
Like, and Lester will stand out there with the hose before market, and he's like hosing down the driveway, and the best. Yeah. And he's got the little notepad, and he's like doing the thing.
I know.
And so I want to make sure, though, that people that are listening realize like it both can be true.
Oh, yeah.
You can have supportive parents that want you to succeed and also not have set things up that well, or, be resistant to the type of business that you're operating, or not be communicating in a way that makes it so it's easy for us to plan. Because I know we talked about it in that succession planning. Like, I've got a little bit of that overlap with things too, on the lack of communication from older generations and how that impacts your business decisions. But
I think that's just I don't want to say I would almost rather, because I don't know how heartbroken I would be if it was, you're excommunicated or you're cut off or you're, but the mental mind, for a lack of a better word, that it is when things can go from being so good to being so bad so quickly. And I'm telling you guys, like, I can share a story in the morning with one of them and be on the bottom of my shower in tears by the end of the day. Like, it is whiplash inducing. And that's probably my biggest struggle. I mean, truly, like, other things are hard. Things about business are hard. I struggle with the mom guilt. I struggle with so much, but having a business that relies on other people to make it successful and have that be such a roller coaster is probably one of the biggest mental strains on me.
For sure. I could see that. Do you think that that's partially why you've made some of the business decisions that you have, meaning like going into coaching, going into, pausing on certain aspects of your business, kind of having some of that diversification that you've had?
Yeah, I don't ever feel like I have anything that is physically located on the ranch. I always feel like is on quicksand.
Yeah. Which is tough when you're building the type of business that you are.
Yeah. And I think it makes it really hard to want to put any more capital in too, like any more big projects. I mean, when we started the initial farm school wedding thing, I didn't really know. I didn't know how bad it was going to be or how much discord it was going to cause. And so I kind of just blindly went after that. And it sort of snowballed, and then things became apparent how bad it could be, how quick, and then how unstable things would feel. And so group coaching, anything online, content creation, Not that I'm making like some, I think I got like $47 off Facebook last month. But, just those things that I can
I
control,
mean,
I
that's
can
a
do it.
bunch of coffees.
It's better than nothing, right? But I think, and future wise, looking towards the future, it is a huge factor in it because I'm exhausted by it. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think it's gotten worse. I do. I think as I've gotten successful and very visibly successful, I think it's caused it to be harder, and I don't know why. And that is really hard for me. Like, I'm a person, I can deal with a lot if I know why, but like I still to this day will ask my husband, what do you think I ever did? Like, what do you think I've done that has caused it to be so bad?
I think the swings have gotten bigger as an
Uh-huh.
outsider. I think the swings have gotten
Mhm.
bigger. And I think it's because the success is when you market in the mountains. I mean, for those who have not attended, it's big. Like the lineup down the highway and like everybody's filling the fields and it's just like it's so big and it's undeniably successful. Like you cannot go to market and not feel how successful it is. It's very different than a business that could potentially look success. Like the proof is in the full field. Like the proof is in the
Right.
vendors that are
It's
doing well.
visual.
It's visual. It is so visual. And so you can see their pride of like, and I walk through market with them and I sit and I eat,
Mhm.
lunch with them. Like I see them during market because you're busy doing all of your stuff and I'm kind of like floating around and shopping. And you can see the pride and you can hear how they talk so highly about the business and all of those different things. So I think it's like the more successful you've gotten, the greater the swell of pride in those big moments. But then I think that that's the thing that from as an outsider that I see when all of a sudden it goes the other way for you, that it just feels like such a bigger crash or it seems like such a
Mhm.
bigger crash these days.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. It's definitely not something that I share a ton on social media. I mean, I do sometimes. I made a funny reel a while ago. I mean, I make jokes here and there and I share stuff, but I also respect the fact that they have their own side of the story. They have their own. I wonder if I will ever get to know what my brother's side of the story is, like what I have done that's so bad that we can't have a relationship that's
Yeah.
functional. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that weighs on me a lot. Anyways,
I know that wasn't
that's
really the topic
it's
of
not.
today's podcast, but we had talked about it a
Yeah.
few times about whether or not it was something that
Mhm.
should be or could be or whatever brought up in the capacity of talking about this because I think it's such while it's your story and while there's obviously all sides of the story that can't be necessarily portrayed through the podcast, I think it's such a common story. Like when we had done the coaching session inside
Mhm.
of group coaching where we had brought the succession planning expert in when Elaine came in and she spoke, like there were so many women who reached out afterwards and said that was just like such a pivotal teaching. Like this is just such a common experience. And so while I know it's a hard conversation to have, I really do appreciate the fact that you were willing to share.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it is an important part of business because I know, like, I'll share stuff about not feeling like I belong. I don't even know if that's my local community when we talk about Springdale, like back to the little town of
Full circle.
Springdale, where there's not a lot going on and it's pretty run down and kind of just a sort of depressed area, depressed as in socioeconomically
Yeah.
depressed, like not a lot of jobs, not a lot of um wealth or stability there. I think a lot of my feelings of not feeling like I belong truly stem just from the ranch too. I think I sort of project that out. I wouldn't be surprised if that's, I don't know though, it's a small town, small mind. I mean, starting this in a tiny town, sometimes I sit back and I'm like, who do I think I am that I can like what
I
sort
love
of
that.
what did hold on, I gotta think of it because she said it. Optimistic delusionality or something like that. Do
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have that I think that I can do this or that I think that I can have a successful business in the middle of nowhere or think that I can, I don't know, be someone that people want to listen to on a podcast.
That Springdale is on a billboard now.
It is.
I feel like I just now that like full circle back to that border guard.
Yeah.
Now when I drive up to the border guard booth, he's always like, "Are you off to Springdale?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." And he's like, "You got ketchup chips in there?" Because I always bring just ketchup chips. So like you've put Springdale on the map, and there are billboards with Springdale, and those billboards are advertising that Market in the Mountain tickets are now officially for sale.
Yeah, that's a wild concept that it's even gotten that big. Even I don't think when I started it, that it was never in my brain that it would be this big or this size or this, I don't know, this big of a thing. You know, when I started Moose Valley Ranch, it was very much like weddings, hunting. It was kind of whatever we could do to utilize property, because about half the ranch is not traditional ag land. Like it can't be farmed. It's timber and some wetlands. And so it was really like, okay, if I know the farming is going to be done by my brother, like if I know he's got that, then I've kind of got what's around it. What could I do around it? And nowhere in my business plan at year one was there.
No.
Was there a market? I don't even think there was a gather at that point, because you heard it.
Yeah.
I was in Oklahoma with you, and we were asked to introduce ourselves and what our business did. And at that point I had a name and nothing else. Nothing else. And I was like, well, I think I want to do some weddings and like maybe teach firearms, because I'm a detective and I think that would be really fun to have like a women in firearms. So spoiler alert, I still have never done a firearms class out there. It's still on my list. I have all the branding done.
That's what I always think of, because we did a one-on-one session after Oklahoma, and that was your thing at the time. And you didn't have gather, you didn't have any of those things in place. It was very much like you knew you were going to start a business and you were developing it out and you had ideas, and it has been unreal to see you go from that to, I mean, standing in the middle of that field when it's filled with shoppers and people excited to come to Springdale. Like it is
to hear
so
people,
good.
I got a message. Well, tickets dropped. And I woke up the next morning to a message where someone had booked flights, a rental car, hotel, and purchased their VIP tickets, which I didn't know. VIP tickets are new this year, so I have no idea how they're going to do. It's a new concept for me. We're trying it out. We'll see. And to wake up that morning and realize, are you kidding me right now? Like someone just bought plane tickets to come to Springdale. Springdale.
It's so awesome. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
You have worked so hard. Like this did not fall into your lap in any way, shape, or form. You have really worked extremely hard. And the entire point of this episode was to talk all about how your business got from one to the other. And we will circle back on that. If you are listening and that was what you wanted to hear about, I promise we will do another episode. There will be a part 2 to this. It's just, I felt like she like kind of tiptoed into the family stuff. And I know we had talked about the fact that it was something that she was willing to share about. And I think it's such an important conversation that I had to change my questions I had in my head for where we were going to go with this interview.
What Kendall's basically saying is now we need to go back and write a whole new title. And that's fine. I mean, I'm happy to talk about it. Not always. Sometimes I'm not okay talking about it. Truly though, if you are sitting there feeling like you get it, send me a message. So these sorts of going into this and going into the my sort of background in online child sex crimes and child sex offenses always leave me feeling a little raw, but I also recognize there's value in sharing your story even when it isn't pretty. For sure.
And that feedback we appreciate so much, because the podcast can sometimes feel like you're just talking into the void. And when it feels like a therapy section into the void, it probably feels extra sensitive. So slide into those DMs.
Go leave a review.
Go leave a review. We really appreciate knowing what resonates and what you guys are liking out of the episode so that we can continue to show up for you guys in the way that supports you best.